7 signs someone is demming you. Imagine for a moment that the devil has no need for horns, no sulphurous scent trailing in his wake. Instead, he appears in a form altogether pleasant, charming, rational, even helpful. You meet him at dinner parties, in places of worship, and perhaps most disturbingly, in the quiet of your own thoughts. He does not announce himself. He does not tell you he is here to ruin you. Instead, he nudges just a little away from the light towards something that feels easier, something that seems reasonable. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who storms your gates, but the one who dines at your table, the one who whispers, "Surely that is not so bad," while pulling you inch by inch into the abyss. How then do we recognize such creatures? By their marks? Subtle, insidious, yet unmistakable. Here are 7 signs that someone may not be what they seem, but something far worse. Consider the guest at your table, the one who speaks well, listens attentively, and seems altogether agreeable. There is nothing alarming about him, nothing grotesque or overtly wicked, and yet something is amiss. His words, though pleasant, seem to bend reality ever so slightly. His kindness, though abundant, feels curiously detached. He is not the villain of crude fairy tales, baring fangs and snarling threats. No, he is something far more dangerous, something almost good. Evil rarely announces itself with a roar. Instead, it slips in quietly, wearing the skin of virtue. It flatters, it reassures, it appeals to your best instincts while leading them just a few degrees off course. The liar who lies outright is easy to dismiss, but the one who sprinkles truth with just a touch of poison, that is the one to fear. The demon does not pull you into darkness with force. He offers you a candle that leads away from the light. He does not oppose goodness outright, for that would be too obvious. Instead, he redefines it. He suggests that kindness must always be soft, that love must never offend, that truth must bow to comfort. He persuades that what is easy is also what is right, and before you realize it, you have traded what is holy for what is merely tolerable. Once the definition of goodness has been gently adjusted, the work of distortion begins in earnest. Truth, once solid and unshaken, becomes something malleable, something that bends to suit the moment. The demon does not need to invent falsehoods outright. Such crude deception would crumble under scrutiny. Instead, he works with what is already there, twisting, stretching, and reshaping until the truth becomes unrecognizable. He does not say, "There is no truth." That would be too obvious, too jarring. Instead, he whispers, "Truth is complicated." He nods sympathetically as you wrestle with conscience, assuring you that clarity is an illusion and certainty a form of arrogance. He suggests that what was once firm may now be reconsidered, that the old moral lines were drawn in the dust and are free to be redrawn elsewhere. His voice is always reasonable, always patient, never urgent, because urgency would reveal the trick. He turns absolutes into preferences, virtues into mere perspectives. Where once there was right and wrong, there is now only context, nuance, and an ever-expanding grey. Convictions that once held firm begin to feel rigid, outdated, even oppressive. Better to be flexible, he says. Better to be open. And so what was once a guiding light becomes a shifting mist, something that no longer leads but instead follows the whims of the moment. Once truth has been made uncertain, the next step is simple. Teach men to laugh at what is sacred, not with the innocent joy of a child nor the warm laughter of shared delight, but with something colder, something sharper. Reverence is made to look foolish. Devotion is painted as naive. And those who still cling to certainty are cast as relics of a less enlightened time. The demon does not demand that you reject goodness outright. He merely teaches you to find it amusing. Mockery is a powerful tool because it works where argument fails. It does not need to prove anything, it only needs to make virtue look ridiculous. Once a thing is laughed at, it is rarely taken seriously again. A man may hold fast against logic, against temptation, even against fear, but against ridicule he often falters. Who wants to be the last to defend what the world has already dismissed with a smirk? The demon ensures that what was once held in awe becomes little more than a joke. The sacred words that shape generations become outdated phrases, muttered ironically. The symbols of faith once carried with honor become trinkets to be toyed with. The virtues that demanded discipline and sacrifice are rebranded as old-fashioned restraints. The whispers continue. Do you really believe such things? Do you not see how absurd it is? The chuckles spread, the knowing glances multiply, and soon what was once too holy to question becomes too laughable to defend. Laughter does its work quickly. Once a thing is mocked, it is rarely defended. But laughter alone is not enough. The next step is to turn man against man, to take those who once stood side by side and make them see one another as enemies. The demon does not wage war with swords or fire. He wages war with suspicion. He does not shout commands, he whispers doubts. And he does not need to destroy virtue, only to divide those who would uphold it. He begins with the smallest of offenses, the most trivial of misunderstandings, a word taken the wrong way, a gesture misinterpreted, a disagreement that need not have mattered, but the demon is careful to make sure it does matter. He amplifies the insult, plays it over and over in the mind until it becomes unbearable. He suggests that the wound was intentional, that the offender is not merely careless, but malicious. Resentment takes root. Once it has, no further work is required. It will grow on its own. He moves between friends, between families, between those who once loved each other. He feeds them different narratives, ensuring that neither sees the other clearly. He offers each one a separate truth, slightly misaligned, so that when they meet again, they no longer speak the same language. The same words are exchanged, but the meanings have shifted. Trust begins to fray, and where trust frays, division follows. He ensures that every cause, no matter how noble, is turned into a battleground. If there is a movement for justice, he will sow discord within it. If there is a call for righteousness, he will make sure that those who answer it cannot agree. He does not need to oppose the cause itself. He only needs to make its champions despise one another. The more passionate they are, the more easily they are turned against each other. The more righteous their anger, the more blind they become to their own faults. He twists love itself into a weapon. Love of one's community becomes distrust of outsiders. Love of one's ideals becomes hatred for those who do not share them. Love of truth becomes an excuse for cruelty. He makes sure that every virtue, once divided from the others, turns sour. Courage without wisdom becomes recklessness. Justice without mercy becomes vengeance. Faith without humility becomes fanaticism. And always, always the blame is placed elsewhere. The division is never seen as the demon's work. It is always the fault of the other side. He ensures that those who should be allies see one another as threats. He turns differences into battle lines, disagreements into irreconcilable rifts. He makes sure that every conversation carries the potential for offense. Every word is a test of loyalty, and every gesture is examined for hidden malice. Where once there was unity, there is now suspicion. And where suspicion takes hold, reconciliation becomes unthinkable. He whispers that peace is impossible, that the other side cannot be trusted, that to seek understanding is to compromise with evil. He paints the world in stark contrasts, us against them, right against wrong, the righteous against the corrupt. But in his version of the story, the enemy is never him, it is always one's neighbor. And so long as men believe this, they will never see where the real danger lies. The signs are there for those who have eyes to see. Evil does not come as a monstrous figure openly declaring its intent. It moves in shadows, in whispers, in the slow erosion of what is true, what is sacred, what is united. It does not pull, it nudges. It does not destroy in a moment. It unravels thread by thread. First, it disguises itself as something good, something reasonable, something compassionate. Then it bends the truth, not with outright lies, but with gentle distortions that make certainty seem foolish. It mocks what is holy, not with rage, but with quiet amusement, turning reverence into absurdity. And finally, it divides, turning friend against friend, brother against brother, ensuring that no force strong enough to resist it remains whole. This is how it works. This is how it has always worked. And so the question is not whether such things are happening around us. The question is whether we recognize them when they do. Evil's greatest triumph is not in the destruction of the good, but in convincing the good that there is nothing left worth defending. The moment we believe that, the battle is already lost.